That is correct, Commissioner Howerton. I love it when we can hold it to that time period. So best of luck.
So I will do my best to do that. So with all the reports, so I will ask our members to hold their questions and allow each person to complete their report and then ask the questions, and I will hold our meeting, see if we can get out by 11 o'clock. So most of the reports are 15 minutes each. So if I call time for the questions to end, we'll need to do that in order for us to finish. And we got reports. We'll get reports on each one of these items. Was there anything that any member wanted to add to the agenda?
Commissioner Howerton, I just want to say before we get going,
Sure.
I just want to welcome you to the chair. And I want to welcome the new county commission members. We're really glad to have you. And I know you all are going to do a great job. And I just want you to know that anyway, those of us on the council can work with you and cooperate with you. We're looking forward to doing that. So before we got going, I just wanted to say that and to congratulate you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. It is a new role for me. I've served as a vice chair before, but I've never served as a chair. I have served as the president of the state association, but never here. And I am truly honored and feel that it's a privilege to serve as a chair of this board, because I think about Marianne Black. Marianne Black is the only other female, African-American female that has served in this role. So I stand on her shoulders that I do this, and thank you. It's an honor. Okay, so I think the first report we have is our health director, Rod Jenkins. Welcome, Rod. Good to see you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well. Extending a warm welcome to our newest commissioners, Commissioners Burns and Commissioner Alam. We look forward to working with you. Public Health welcomes you, and we certainly look forward to having individual conversations sometime in the near future. And to the other members of the County Board of Commissioners and to Durham City Council, we greet you. We thank you for your support, your continued support throughout the pandemic. And we certainly appreciate all that you've done to champion public health in these rather difficult times. My message is real simple. The surge continues to perform an enormous stress test on our healthcare system. However, Durham continues to meet the challenges presented by this pandemic. And it's really attributed to the fact that we have a very unique situation in Durham in which we work collaboratively all the time. And our healthcare coalition continues to be strong and very vibrant. And we meet often, sometimes unexpectedly, but it's all in an effort to meet the challenges. So again, I've been allotted 10 minutes. I'll do my very best to adhere to that time frame. Our current total active cases of COVID-19 is 656. Inactive cases are those individuals who have beat or succumbed to COVID care is 11,356. Unfortunately, with this surge, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen a number of deaths due to COVID. Current death total is 126 since the pandemic began. Our hearts and prayers continue to be with those families who've lost loved ones to COVID, especially during these unique times during the holidays. We have a total of 12,143 total cases of COVID since the pandemic began. As far as our trends, we do promote the 7-day moving average because it really shows us what the infection rate is as far as the number of cases either increasing or decreasing. As of December 7th, the 7-day moving average was 95. This is an increase from the average of 83 the previous week. 680 2 weeks ago. So far in the month of December, we have seen 670 cases thus far of COVID-19. Suffice to say, North Carolina's lab confirmed cases has increased as reported in the news, and Durham's trajectory of lab confirmed cases continues to increase as well. We keep a close eye on race and ethnicity because we try our best to promote health equity and look at everything through a racial lens here in Durham County. And I'm still proud to say that we've come a long way with our Latinx population, although they continue to be overrepresented. They represent 21.13% of all of our cases so far. And again, 14% of all Durhamites are of this population. So there's a lot of work still to be done. Black or African American are proportionally represented at 34.56% of all of our current cases, though they represent 37% of all Durham residents. Now, white population represents 36.56% of our cases, though they represent 54% of all of our Durhamites. So again, more work to be done with our Latinx population, but I'd be remiss in saying that through the efforts of El Centro Hispano, the Latin 19 healthcare advocates, radio stations like La Ley, we've come a long way from early summer where 78% of all of our cases, new cases, infections were the Latinx population. Continuing on, we continue to keep a very close eye on our percent positive of lab reported. And our current positivity rate is 5.1%. This is an increase from the previous week where it was 4.8%. So again, we continue to see the surge and its effect on our lab confirmed positives, but that's also not to be undone. We're continuing to do well. Again, there's some areas in our region that have positive percentage as high as 12%. So we're continuing to hold our own here in Durham. In terms of COVID's effect on our young population, those individuals are 18 years of age and younger, we have a percentage rate of 12.95% of all of our cases, 214. That was for the month of November. We fully expect this week for that number to be much lower, but we're continuing to keep an eye on our school-age children. There were a couple of questions that were presented to me in terms of vaccines. And I'm proud to say that we're sort of like in a very mixed place right now. You know, we're encouraged by the fact that the vaccine is coming. However, we still have to keep our eye and our advocacy for those people to still practice the 3 W's and still protect themselves, because there's still a very deadly respiratory pathogen amongst us. So we can't keep our eye, away from the fact that COVID is still infecting people at an alarming rate. However, we do fully expect for vaccines to be in North Carolina around December 14th. As reported, we are slated to receive, the state of North Carolina is slated to receive 85,000 doses. The current plan is to follow the guidance set forth by the ACIP, CDC, and North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, and that is to provide the vaccine in 4 phases. Happy to report that phase 1A will be employed first, and it involves the vaccination of our healthcare workers, which include our doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals, along with the staff and residents of nursing homes. That decision was made because a lot of our deaths, of course, is attributed to long-term care facilities, and of course, our frontline workers are definitely being impacted by COVID-19 while they're performing their critical duties of taking care of our residents. Even with the vaccine in place, ladies and gentlemen, we fully expect within the next 6 months for our numbers of cases to continue to increase steadily within the new year. There will still be a need for public health mitigation, in terms of, continuing to promote the 3 Ws, continuing to stay behind the mask, of course, washing our hands and maintaining our social distancing, but more importantly, continuing to advocate for stronger mask mandates and mask wearing. And of course, we'll continue to promote the vaccine in the community, although we do know that there's a little reluctance in some individuals to be vaccinated. I feel as if Durham is in a unique place, as I aforementioned, because of the fact that we have such a robust and a very strong infrastructure through Durham's Emergency Operations Center and our Recovery and Renewal Task Force and its very productive roundtables. I truly believe that Durham has the infrastructure in place to disseminate information quickly through our vast and diverse network of committed stakeholders. We are currently coordinating with a number of individuals to include Emergency Management, Durham Police Department, Durham County Sheriff's Department, Durham Fire Department, Duke's Emergency Management Division, our homeless providers, and also we have been in strong conversations with Durham Public Schools. Through all these efforts, I do feel as if we will be successful in disseminating and quickly vaccinating Durham's population. I was given 10 minutes. I did want to allow for some questions before we go to the next topic.
Thank you, Rod. Great report. It's a lot of information. And I was just sitting here thinking about our new commissioners who probably feel like they're drinking from a hot fire hose about now. So are there questions from the committee? Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to also add my congratulations to the mayor, to you for your new role, and to our new commissioners. Welcome. Excited to have you all. Mr. Jenkins, do you have a sense from the guidance that's being put out now when we can expect frontline city and county employees to be able to access the vaccine? Are folks that are out working in the field and might face some occupational exposures based on that?
Thank you for that question, Councilman Johnson, and I hope you're doing well. That's a question I probably field on a daily basis, and I will say that we have been proactive in surveying that population that you just described. We have surveyed our public health workforce. I do understand that EMS, from a peer review committee that I was on last night, has surveyed their staff, and I fully expect to send a survey out to the groups that I just listed, police, fire, EMS, just to determine, what their favorability is or reluctance is to the vaccine. To definitively answer your question, we have a ways to go before we're able to get to that other group, which would probably fall within phase 2. We do know that from recent reports that there are going to be some ebbs and flows with the vaccine distribution from the manufacturer. We are hoping, always optimistic that, we'll get what they say we will, but we have to be prepared for, supply chain issues or just particular issues with vaccine distribution. But we certainly hope that county employees, city employees will be able to be warm and receptive to the vaccine. And we certainly hope that they will be able to be vaccinated quickly. The plan is to basically work internally and then work externally, to be very, very clear. We have to take care of the healthcare workers, and we have to follow the guidance from the ACIP, CDC, and DHHS as far as those populations who have been deemed essential, those who have been deemed in those particular phases in order to receive the vaccine.
Thank you. That's helpful. One more question. So with regard to reluctance to receiving the vaccine, unfortunately, due to some of the historical missteps around, medicine and public health in this country, we have a a lot of people of color, especially Black folks who I know are going to be hesitant to take the vaccine. And I've been seeing a lot, of concern in the media, mostly about the vaccine. Do we have, or can we tap into any kind of public outreach that specifically focuses on communities of color that might have higher reluctance to take the vaccine? I'm just concerned that, in Durham, we have a high population of, Latino community members who are experiencing the virus. I've mostly heard about Black community members being more hesitant around vaccination, but I'm just concerned that the impact of the vaccine rollout, that people's skepticism is going to have a negative impact on community health for communities of color, and want to think about ways that we can mitigate against that.
Once again, Councilman Johnson, outstanding topic, fantastic point you make, and I don't shy away from it. I do clearly know that history has not been kind to historically marginalized populations when it comes to vaccines and experimentations, if you will. It's important from a racial equity perspective to acknowledge that. However, I will say that the unfortunate thing in this current state that we're in is that semantics have gotten involved when it comes to our current state of affairs. When you talk about an Operation Warp Speed, it makes it seem as if things have been rushed, when in fact the pandemic has necessitated an urgency to get this vaccine out to the masses. And I'm delighted. I'm excited. I will tell you that much to the chagrin of my lovely wife, I will be first in line when my time. And I hope to record it, to be honest, because I want to, as a Black man and the health director, I certainly want to encourage the Black community to let them know that it's safe, it's efficacious. The FDA did not half-step. They did not, miss a beat when it comes to this vaccine. It has been through rigorous human trials. It's important that I say human trials, because everybody thinks that the vaccine was administered to lab rats and mice and everything. Nah, there were human trials. And we are delighted to let our Durham population know that the state has hired an external communications firm to promote the vaccine. And it's important for us to be able to tell the story of the why and the how, and how we've gotten to this point. And I believe that once knowledge is really espoused about the vaccine, there will be greater ability to receive it. I'd also like to say that locally, through the Recovery Renewals Task Force's Vulnerable Populations Work Group and our Immigrant and Refugee Roundtables, we do plan to do some town halls. They've not been scheduled yet, but we certainly want to have town halls to really target these populations who may have some reluctance on taking the vaccine. We are not in the business of hiding anything. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to be fully transparent in everything we do when it comes to this vaccine, which has really been our mantra throughout the entire pandemic. We want to be open and honest and be able to provide the evidence base and the data to make people comfortable and give them the information they need to make an informed decision. So certainly hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. I'm glad that y'all are thinking about that, and I'd be happy to get in line with you whenever there's a opportunity for us to show confidence, public confidence in the vaccine, and willingness to get vaccinated. I think it's going to be really important to make sure as many people are vaccinated as possible so that we can get this under control. So thank you so much for your work, and in this really incredibly difficult time, we're lucky to have you.
We appreciate it.
So, Mr. Jenkins, the this is such an important topic. And as you were talking, I was thinking that, you know, with the county's website as well, it would be great to have as much communication out there, not just you, but maybe some young persons that are as well that have taken the vaccine, that they show up on the website, letting people know that that is okay, because this is a huge conversation for the Black community and the Latinx community. So
Absolutely. We have a very dynamic and super great PIO apparatus. You know, our JIG, I hope I'm saying it right, our JIG does a fantastic job, and I'm pretty sure that's something that they can put together.
this is such an important topic for all of us, and we're going to run out of time. And I know that all the other commissioners and individuals have questions. We may have to just send those to Rod and have him answer those, because we need to move to the next topic. So thank you so much, Rod, for your report.
Thank you so much.
The next topic is on food security, and Donna is there ready to go. So if you want to go ahead with.
Yes, absolutely. Monica, I think you can cue the food security slides if you would. I appreciate that. Good morning, all. I am Donna Rewalt. I am the County Extension Director. I am also the co-lead of the Food Security Task Force for COVID-19, along with Kelly Warnock in Public Health and Michael Davis in Strategic Initiatives. I want to start out certainly by saying congratulations to our new chair and welcome to our new commissioners. I want to thank all of you for having us here this morning to give you some really important updates on our work in Durham County. Next. As many of you know, Monica, you can turn the slide, thanks. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbates a lot of existing issues in Durham. Hunger and food access were significant issues before the pandemic. They remain so and have increased during that time. According to Feeding America, 1 in 5 Durham County households are now facing food insecurity. Those numbers that you see there also represent 1 in 4 children. It certainly disproportionately impacts our Black and Brown residents and families led by single mothers. Our food pantries and other organizations have experienced a 50 to 500% increase in their pre-COVID service populations. I know some of you often ask, how do we know who's hungry and where they are? Our food pantry network of over 60 food pantries in Durham are one of the best ways that we can see those increases in neighborhoods and locations throughout the city and county. The economic challenges have created some really hard choices for families, choosing between food and other essentials, whether that's housing or medical care. We have had some good news in that we have had some increases in benefits through our maximization of federal SNAP benefits and the addition of pandemic EBT, but these have not been sufficient to address the food crisis. Next slide, please. Some of those who remain of particular concern at this time are seniors and other COVID vulnerable populations. Our food insecure individuals who also are COVID positive and in isolation, as well as those who are under quarantine for a variety of reasons. Our undocumented residents who are certainly well represented in our Latinx population, as well as families with children in any of these situations, plus families that have transportation and access limitations. Next. Our county response has been multifaceted. We certainly have continued to invest in direct food relief. Our public school system has continued to serve children 0 to 18 through the school meal flexibility that's been offered. Approximately 7,000 to 7,500 kids a day are fed in this way at this time. We have convened a food security task force with a large mailing list of over 150, but about 40 core community partners who meet bi-weekly to solve problems. We worked with farmers and markets. We provided technical and logistical support, whether that's getting signs out to a food pantry, volunteers, PPE. We also have funded through our county commissioners a food security coordinator position, which will operate year round. We've also, in our county nonprofit grant process, which the commissioners will see before them in January, we've included COVID as a factor in that process, including in the food security focus area. And most recently, we've started working with partners, including the Chamber, and working with United Way on a possible Durham Food Fund to help channel individual donations. One thing that we find is that our smaller feeding operators, are often run by volunteers. They don't have a significant fundraising apparatus, and so keeping up is challenging for them. So we want to provide that kind of assistance. Next. So in terms of funding, we have a couple of contracts that have recently expired. End Hunger Durham, providing meals for high-risk, low-income seniors, that ended in September, and a contract with El Centro Hispano to provide some food aid to Latinx households. Our Meals on Wheels contract is ongoing to provide meals for some at-risk Durham seniors. And currently, we are in the midst of our contract with the Food Insight Group for the Eat and See project, which is particularly providing meals to Durham families, our Family Meals program that focuses on families who have significant access issues to our traditional emergency food sources. That contract expires on December 31st, which leads to our next slide, that we will be coming before you, I believe, next Monday with a request to our commissioners to extend that Eat and See contract. That's been a very successful program for us, and it's also allowed us to be very targeted. We're intending to provide family meals to a slightly more targeted group of 250 families on a referral basis, as well as adding more seniors into that mix following some really in-depth conversations with community partners, and a little bit more assistance in coordinating delivery of DPS meals. Eat and See has also taken on completely on their own, coordinating about 1,500 direct-to-home meal delivery. So out of that 7,500 meals, they've been taking care of that. So we're recommending a contract extension through March 31st. The other item that you have in front of you that's also detailed in the report that I provided, we will actually not be coming to you at this time for this. We have recently learned yesterday that Duke will be able to continue their program through March, which means they will be able to provide some COVID positive feeding relief. What we intend to do at this time is for our COVID positive food insecure families, we are going to try to fill in the gaps. The gaps we tend to experience with services for them tend to be on weekends and in a shorter time frame. So for a family who finds out they're COVID positive and has a day or two or less worth of food, those are the families that we will be targeting through county funds. But the county funds that we already have through public health that have already been designated for that purpose are what we're going to use at this time, probably working with an external contractor, and we will not come to the commissioners at this point for funding while this indicates otherwise. So next slide. And so a couple of final considerations I just want to mention. We've been talking a lot about, we're essentially building a food delivery system that we didn't expect to build, right? So we recognize very clearly that our community-based organizations are doing significant, amazing, remarkable work. They are working hard. They are often unpaid. They're doing the heavy lifting. And we really have to think about them as an extension of our work. And we need to provide support and clear barriers to make their work easier. Also, to be effective, we need to continue to support and strengthen systems approaches to the crisis to build capacity. We actually believe that we're actually building some systems that might be able to be utilized in future emergencies. Hopefully none as intense as this one, but we think investing in community organizations and people that build effective food delivery systems, that certainly includes supporting Black and Brown organizations, providing support that keeps people employed or creates opportunities for employment while also getting food to people in need. I think the Eat and See project is a great example. We had Dorian Bolden, who is a proprietor of BU Cafe that's deeply involved in that, and they are creating this remarkable, robust system of interconnectedness of restaurants that helped actually get food to people, and at the same time employing individuals in our restaurant industry. So I want to thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions or follow up on any of these points in more depth at this time.
Questions? Commissioner Jacobs?
Thank you, Donna. As always, thanks for your fantastic work. I know I've sat in on some of the meetings, and just as you said, the the relationships and the collaboration that is being formed related to this food issue is one of the positives that we'll be building for the future. I didn't see anything in terms of moving forward about how we're going to address the needs of our seniors. I know this is, you mentioned that this is an ongoing concern. The Meals on Wheels contract runs out in March, but it wasn't even meeting the need before. So I'm just wondering, what's the plan for our seniors?
So with the Eden-C contract, we're making, well, seniors were included as a potential population, but that's not really a population we've served through that contract. What we found is that we are narrowing the number of families we are serving, because we do have some families who may be less in need that we have included in that group of families. So we're actually going to be narrowing the number of families served through this referral process that is already in place. And we're going to increase the senior serve. So we'll have 150 senior slots as part of that. Depending on how our recommendations through our nonprofit process go, there's also some senior meal focus in that as well. So those are a couple of areas. I know Meals on Wheels has been certainly working in other ways to deliver food. So those are some of the ways in which we're taking a look. That's probably one group, depending on how the vaccine and all of these other things roll out, that we may or may not need to revisit. So while we're coming to you, I will say this month, I can't guarantee that we will not come back. We don't have a current plan for that. I mean, I think the difficult thing right now is it's often difficult to know exactly where and how to deliver the food and put our best dollars, but we've been getting really good support from our partners on what to do with that. So that's one reason why we've changed the Eden-C contract slightly to add those seniors.
Okay, and I just want to also, we hope that a federal relief package is coming and an eviction moratorium extension and all that. But I just want to really highlight that we were going into a period of such uncertainty for people that could get really scary.
Yeah.
And I mean, the numbers that you've shared about food insecurity are just mind blowing in our community and the need. So hope we'll be nimble for that. And also this, I know we're going to hear from Ben later, but we've been going month to month on the SNAP waivers as well. Do you have any sense about where that's headed with those?
That's a great question. I think Ben will have certainly more information. It appears, especially with the extension of pandemic EBT, it does seem to be the will to continue that approach. So we're hopeful for that. So that's an important work. We're also digging deeper on the pandemic EBT. One of the things about that is there's some confusion over whether or not families who are new to Durham Public Schools, for example, and are need to sign up for free and reduced lunch, and will those families then get added? Because when we had the last round of pandemic EBT, for example, only the families who'd had it in the spring were getting it, right? And if you were a new kindergartner or you were new to the district, you weren't getting it. So we're trying to sort through a little bit of that, and we're going to do some public information around that. Also, we have found that sometimes pandemic EBT is also provided to some of our undocumented residents, which is wonderful. But because they got those cards in the spring, they may not have known they needed to keep them. So they might have spent them like a gift card and then thrown them away. Then they have to call and get a new card. So there's some steps in that process. While it's a wonderful benefit to have, we still are trying to work through some of those kinks. And so we're working within the public health dying team has been doing great work supporting that, and we're going to hopefully work with Durham Public Schools to get some of that information out a little bit more clearly, because it can be confusing to people, particularly among our pandemic EBT free and reduced lunch population.
Thank you.
Is that Mayor Schultz? Did I see your hand back there? No?
I'm good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to congratulate you as well and welcome our new commissioners. I just have one question, Donna, just noting, assuming that seniors I'm not sure if it meant by the age of 55 or 65, but I wanted to make sure that persons with disabilities were also included, and you didn't mention any slots for those persons that aren't of those ages being included in the funding. And I was just trying to find out where that was and if the city needed to make sure that there was something in place.
That's great. Actually, that's a great question. We've been following kind of the normal age, guidelines. So I can go back and talk with folks about that and see where that sits. We didn't have specific slots for disabled adults, but we can definitely go back and have a conversation about that for sure.
And I would just assume that conversation would be more with DSS, because it's not like speaking to someone who has the income to cover themselves, but specific to people who don't have the income to cover themselves. And so just those persons.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. So people without the income, we do have some challenges, I will say, both with seniors and disabled adults who do have the income, but don't have a difficulty in understanding how to access these, online ordering systems and all those types of things. There's been a lot of conversation on how do you get volunteers or other people to help seniors or other disabled adults access those systems when they have the funds to do it. And that's another challenge that we've been talking about as well.
Yes, and I would say the same thing, because it's so people who have disabilities includes people with mental illness and others. Like I think when you're saying disabled person, it's thinking of people in wheelchairs, and I just want to be clear that it's all of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, I don't see any other hands, so
I think
thank you so much.
I think Commissioner Carter has her hand
Carter.
up. She's waving.
Sorry, Commissioner Carter, I didn't see your hand.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I just want to comment really quickly and say how miraculous I think this work is. I wanted to thank the heroes and heroines that are doing it, and including our own dine team, including the school nutrition workers. I heard a lot about the extraordinary efforts that they are putting in, truly essential frontline workers where this food security issue is concerned. And I also just wanted to say that this issue of food security through the pandemic might be very informative for some of our future decisions around things like transportation. It seems like we could spend less money on food security if we, if we had a more enriched and robust public transportation system. I mean, the food security is magnified by the inequities in access to transportation. So just, really thinking ahead about our transportation plan and how we spend our county transit dollars. And the other thing I wanted to mention before I forget is that there may be a need in the future or a real benefit for our community if we had a centralized kitchen, through the public school system, but in a more broad community way. So those are things I think we might be discussing in the future, and I just wanted to highlight them here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you again, Donna, as well. And, this is such this conversation has come up with the association as well. As a matter of fact, the new president of the association, this is one of his initiatives, is around food insecurity. And I will be bringing a resolution from him that he's making this one of his priorities across the state around food insecurity. So thank you for the work that you and your staff are doing, because this is really important for people to make sure that they have food.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, the next presentation is a small business fund. Is that ready?
Yes, it is.
Oh, there you are, Guru.
Good.
Okay,
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the County Commissioners and City Council. My name is Andre Pettigrew. I'm the Director of the Office of Economic Development and Workforce Development for the City of Durham. I'm going to give you an update on the efforts that the city and the county and partners have made in order to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on our small business community. Obviously, the stay-at-home orders have had tremendous impact on the small business community, particularly in our restaurant and hospitality industry, but it's obviously much broader than that. I'm going to report out on the Durham Small Business Recovery Fund, as well as a new fund that we stood up, the Durham Cares Small Business Grant Program. And so, Monica, if you could just put up the one slide that I have, and I'll just talk through these key points. Great. I wanted to remind you that the Durham Small Business Recovery Fund was developed in June, and it's developed in a partnership between the city, the county, Duke University, and the Carolina Small Business Fund. This program was organized, and actually the partnership was sort of catalyzed by Duke University's willingness to make an investment to sort of support our small businesses. And obviously the county and the city has joined in. This program is actually being administered by the Carolina Small Business Fund, which is a CDFI certified development institution, sort of a non-bank lender in our community that's been an excellent partner in implementing this program. Again, without their capacity, all of our organizations would have been hard pressed to be able to deliver this resource to our community in a responsive way. Again, much of the debate in terms of responding to our small business community was a recognition that within the federal program, many small businesses, particularly women and minority businesses, were not able to adequately access the payroll protection program, which is the federal SBA program. And so in designing this program, there were two things that we wanted to make sure happened. We wanted to make sure that we worked with the smallest of the businesses in our community, and that we were able to impact women and minority-owned businesses. Related to that, there was obviously a debate around the ability to offer grants versus loans. Again, because of the legal interpretation, we developed a hybrid program. Duke University put up the $1 million of grant funding for businesses, while the county and the city put together a long-term loan program of just under $2 million. The grant program to date has already awarded out $1 million. This program is targeted at businesses that are $500,000 and below. It included a number of sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed individuals who, again, were not participating in the federal program. We received over 266 applications and were able to approve 140. The average grant size is $7,500, and again, the maximum being $10,000. I'm very pleased. I think all the partners are very pleased that we were able to effectively exceed our goals in terms of women-owned participation and minority-owned participation. The 56% for women-owned participation and 66% minority participation was really a result of the outreach that was conducted and the levels of partnership in the community. We worked very closely with the organizations like the Chamber, the Black Chamber. We worked in the Hispanic communities to do outreach. And again, the outreach, I think, is one of the most important aspects of the grant program. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are able to touch industries, food, hospitality, arts and entertainment, again, barbers, salons, very small businesses in our grant program. The loan program we've actually been able to extend $577,000. Obviously, grants go faster than loans, and I'll talk a little bit more about the grant work in the second program. But this loan product really was, I think, a very important product. You need to know that for the loan program, We have awarded 25 businesses loans totaling up to the 577,000, but there have been over 66 applications, and these requests have exceeded over $2 million. So in essence, there is a market for loans, though we understand why grants are preferred. And again, we've modified our strategy. I wanted to mention, though, that the loan program is unique in that, again, as we work with City Council, it's a long-term loan, 9 years. The first year is only interest-only payments. The interest rate is only 3%. And I think the most unique factor about this term loan is that it is effectively unsecured. The borrower is not required to pledge any additional assets, and there's no requirement for a personal guarantee. It's a very unique product in that sense, that term loans are almost always secured by some asset or personal guarantee for small business. And so again, we think we're piloting a new program, and so the current applicants are receiving technical assistance, and we're tracking their performance as we go through this process. Again, the average loan amount is $28,000, with the maximum being $35,000. The primary reason for denials in the loans have been the insufficient income to actually service the debt. So based on projections, cash flow analysis of businesses that cannot service the debt, paying the interest and principal over the term of the loan, were denied. We still have approximately $1.2 million available in the loan fund. And again, we're continuing to promote that. The second program that I wanted to talk about is a very new program, and it's one that's going to be on City Council's agenda to consider on Thursday, and the County Commissioners on Monday. Again, this is the Durham CARES Small Business Grant Program. Last month, City Council allocated $240,000 for grants for small business. Again, the Office of Economic and Workforce Development has set up a team led by Brian Smith of my staff to receive and evaluate grants and make selections. I'm pleased to say that the first $240,000, the grantees have been notified as of yesterday that they will be receiving their funds by Friday of this week. We have set up a system, and we're prepared if City Council and the County Commissioners agree to an interlocal agreement that's been developed by the Joint Legals team to receive the $250,000 that are available through the County Commissioners. Again, my office is set up, and we're prepared to continue to review applications. We actually got 92 applications on the first day. We've just gotten through the first 30 and are proceeding on the next 30. We believe that in reviewing the existing applications, we'll be able to distribute the $250,000 that the county is putting in this fund prior to December 30th, which is the deadline for all federal CARES money. So I will end with that and take questions.
Thank you so much for that report. I just have two questions here before we move on. One of them, let's see, I gotta remember where I was. The 1.2 million?
Yes.
That's still available? Will that be used up before the 31st?
Well, the 1.2 million, the answer is no. The 1.2 million is not federal monies. These are monies that the county and the city have put together. And again, we will run this program till those monies run out. By the way, we're not done with this. Our businesses continue to struggle, and we've had conversations with all of our partners, including the county I'm working with, Andy Miracle, your representative, as well as Duke University, about how we can continue this relationship and use this infrastructure to provide additional funding that may come from the federal, state, or commitments that we may make here locally.
Okay. All right, let me allow the other members to ask questions. I may have one more, but questions from Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. Mr. Pettigrew, I actually had two questions, but you answered the first one because in the first county commissioner meeting, I know you said you wanted to give us a report back. Well, not us, because I didn't get sworn into yesterday, but I remember you said you were going to give us a report back on the $250,000 that you would be asking for and how many applications you have. As somebody who's done this work for a number of years, you often have more applications than you have funding, and that's been the case. And many of them have run out 2 weeks in, 1 week in. My bigger question is not necessarily about the loans, but the grants. There are a lot of programs being ran statewide. Commerce has the Joint Retention Program grant. The Hub office has a Retool NC. And there are a lot of folks giving out grants. I don't have an issue with folks applying for as much as they can apply for because they don't know what they're going to be awarded. And desperate times call for desperate measures. What I'm trying to find out is whether or not we're looking at, since we have so many more applications than we have funding, do we have data sharing agreements in place so that there's no duplication of benefits? So if you find out that maybe the Hub office or maybe Commerce awarded somebody a grant and we say, well, okay, not to take away from a small business owner, I might take a hit on this one, but to be able to say, okay, you've been awarded 10,000. I have 16 more applications over here. How can I move these forward? So that's my big question. And I'm sorry if that was a long setup, but do we have some data sharing agreements in place?
Well, Commissioner Burns, thank you for that excellent question. And let me maybe answer it in two ways. First of all, the participants in the Durham Small Business Recovery Fund cannot participate in the CARES program. We wanted to make sure that we were spreading out this resource. However, the specific answer to your question, unfortunately, we do not have a sharing agreement with the state or with the federal government and banks relative to this program. And so individuals who were successful in PPP or NCB tool could apply and be successful. Again, there is a shortage of funding, grant and loans. And again, part of the art of this is how we strengthen our small business ecosystem so that we're sharing information and working together in order to knit together a stronger infrastructure in order to support as many businesses as we can. And again, that's a challenge going forward.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you have something, Andy? You popped up there. Did you have something you wanted to contribute?
No, Director Pettigrew summarized my thoughts there. Yep.
Thank you. Other questions? Commissioner Jacobs?
Thank you. And that was a great question from Commissioner Burns. And I guess following up on hers, I have something else, but is it possible to just include on the application, have you received any other, what other grant funding have you received, even to include that, to try to get that information? Is that asked now?
That is asked. And again, but it's not a criteria for selecting. So again, I think Commissioner Jacobs, your question is a very important strategic one. Again, in all of these programs, we have developed a additional database of information on our firms and the ability to reach out to them. For the grantees, it really is critical that we continue to track and make sure that they're getting the technical assistance services that they need during this period. Again, this is the most difficult time for any business to operate. The uncertainties are so great and so so significant. And so the ability to know who they are, what challenges they have, as well as connecting them to the resources has been pretty much the commitment that all the partners have made going through this, these programs.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying too. It's similar to, I think, everything else with the food security, that the relationships that you are building now are one of the positives for the future. And I was going to ask about the technical assistance, because that's one of the things that I heard from some of the folks who are at the Small Business Center at Durham Tech. And one of the things that I've been hearing is that that's so important, that businesses right now need help pivoting, adapting, being flexible. And it's almost equally of important as the money. And I would just wanted to hear a little bit more about that. And also, it just related to the fact that there's still $1.2 million left of the loan funds. Do you think there's a need to revisit what the criteria is? Is the criteria too restrictive? Has there been any discussion on that? So those are my two questions.
Sure. Let me start with the last question, and I'll go back to the other. Again, we've tried to, put in our learnings at each iteration of these programs going forward. In the loan fund, we did originally, again, targeting the very smallest of our businesses, originally set a size standard of $2 million. We've since raised that up to 5 million. And by raising it up to 5 million in revenue, we did increase the number of applicants based on that sort of requirement. I think one of the other things, Commissioner Jacobs, during this period, again, tremendous pressure and volatility for our business owners. They've been inundated with a host of PPP, EIDL programs and what have you. And again, the loan program is effectively competing against all of the grant programs. $12 million set aside for hub businesses in North Carolina. We have 2 grant programs. Again, grants are preferred, but there is a place for lending, particularly a term loan that is at 3%, that doesn't require you to do it. So again, you have to be in the position to pivot your business and grow your business in order to pay for a loan. Again, we have made a transition, and again, recovery, pivoting is a very important part of how we're looking at the businesses that are currently surviving. It's a high attrition rate. Businesses are going out at a high rate every day. Now let me speak to the technical assistance. Again, we work very closely with Durham Tech Small Business Development Center, as well as the Small Business Technology Development Center. DDI, the Durham Chamber, Discover Durham, all of these organizations have been a part of a network that has literally been meeting every week to talk about what's going on the ground and how to get the word out. Again, the information from the Mayor's Task Force has actually influenced how we've spent our money and how we've invested it in this area. The urgency is there, the cooperation is there, and it's going to be this network, the ability for us to work together and leverage and align our resources that are going to sustain us over this next period. We're not done with this. This in my mind is really about working every day to implement a 3 to 5 year recovery program that stitches back the backbone of our small business community and our economy. We will be making investments in the area of entrepreneurship and support in the years out because it will generate the return on investment and re-strengthen our community. And again, we think it's especially critical for our minority and women-owned businesses to make these investments.
Well, thank you, Andre. I really appreciate having your vision, and I agree that, this is really fundamental. Small businesses are the backbone of our community and our economy, and focusing on renewal and recovery. So thank you.
Okay, we have Mayor Schul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to point out to people, I'm not sure everyone realizes that Mr. Pettigrew and his team are not only administering this program, but they're actually, for the second program, they're actually the ones evaluating the loans and getting the loans out the door. You all, just to remind all of us that, and congratulations to the city and county, we both decided that we had how we were going to get our remaining CARES fund out the door by December 31st. We moved it into this program, but that meant we had to have somebody to administer it. The Small Business Development Fund couldn't do it. And so Mr. Pettigrew and his team stepped up, and I'm really impressed that you've already gotten half of it done. And just wanted to congratulate and thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And again, the leadership of the commissioners and council has provided very clear direction in terms of what you needed from us as staff. And again, in order to be responsive to the community, I'm proud of the team that has stood up this program, and again, the ability to receive the county's monies and deliver them efficiently and effectively in a timely manner is really what it's all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your report. If there are no other questions, we'll move on. And
One more question.
Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you. Just one brief question. Just following up from last month, noting that I asked about, how you were able to decipher women-owned from minority-owned, and just making sure to double back and make sure that I get an answer on that. And then just noting if there's a way to map this information so that we can see, and so that the public can see that this is not all downtown businesses, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, hadn't forgotten about your question in terms of the mix of diversity in the fund, and we'll be able to provide that to you. And again, we will be putting together a report of the first 6 months of the Durham Recovery Fund in January. And in that, we will sort of map out and give examples of some of the recipients and what the impact is. So that's
Thank
something
you.
to come next month.
I appreciate it. I don't begrudge you. I know that you're busy, and it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of just making sure we have the information. So thank you.
So members, you might want to look at our agenda. We've got about 50 minutes, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 more items for presentation. So if there's an item that you don't feel that it's urgent that we do that today, you might want to look at that, because I don't think we're going to get all of this done by 11 o'clock. Just heads up. So the next item is virtual learning and digital access.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Howerton. I'm Megan Gonzalez-Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Durham Public Schools Foundation, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all this morning to talk about virtual learning and digital access needs and priorities for our DPS students. I also wanted to let you know that Dr. Hardy has been kind enough to join us as well. So if you all have any questions that are specific to DPS that she may be best positioned to answer, she is here as well, and I really appreciate her joining us. The DPS Foundation's focus during this pandemic has been on galvanizing both financial and non-financial community resources to support our DPS students with virtual learning and digital access. In July, we launched the Accelerating Digital Equity campaign with the goal of raising $1.5 million this school year to help support and strengthen remote learning. To date, we've raised about 1.4 million toward that goal. And that's from over 756 different Durham businesses, foundations, faith communities, and individuals. It's been a really amazing outpouring of support from the Durham community in support of our students this school year. While we have been continuing to raise funds toward this effort, the foundation has also been allocating funds toward emerging needs, and so far have allocated about $800,000. And those have gone toward purchasing some needed devices for students, funding teacher professional development, providing grants to fund digital equity projects at the school level that are designed and led by students, educators, and parents themselves. A student IT help desk internship for DPS and Durham Tech students that will launch this spring. And we provided $300,000 to help provide students with free access to learning centers. In addition to the Accelerating Digital Equity campaign and the priorities we've been able to fund out of that campaign, wanted to also share a couple of other ways the foundation has been supporting our DPS communities. One is through the creation of the HOPE Network, which helps connect DPS schools with volunteers and other community resources like space. And we also, in the fall, had a $100,000 family relief fund that provided DPS families with $500 checks for needs like rental assistance, utilities, and food. As you all know, the city and county have made significant investments in the Hope Learning Centers as part of our community-wide support for our students during remote learning. These Hope Learning Centers provide a really critical resource for our most vulnerable students while we're in remote learning. At the Learning Centers, students get support in accessing their online learning, as well as social emotional supports and recreation activities, and 2 meals a day. When funds were allocated by the city and the county, as well as the foundation's allocation to learning centers in the fall, we didn't know what second semester would look like in terms of if we would be continuing to be remote or be back in person. And so the funding that was allocated was for the first semester. And so all of the funds that were committed to learning centers will be expended before the second semester begins. As we now begin looking toward what our second semester will look like for our students, we know that it's likely that many, very possibly all of our DPS students could remain in remote learning for the rest of the school year. DPS is creating funding projections for what their learning centers would look like if they remain in Plan C. And the learning centers that are operated by our community partner sites, which are Student U, Kate's Corner, and YMCA, will need additional funding if they're going to continue serving the over 300 students who are currently enrolled in their 3 sites. Those partners are currently working on funding proposals for what second semester would look like, and they'll be sharing more about those needs soon. Those partners are on the agenda to join the county commissioners next Monday. So you'll be hearing more details from them then about funding projections from the spring and what they see the needs as being. As we think about the challenges ahead for our students, in addition to serving our most vulnerable students, ensuring that they have access to safe, nurturing learning environments through the learning centers, there are several other significant needs that we anticipate in the coming 6 months and beyond that I wanted to lift up. One is continuing to support and strengthen the online learning experience, as many, if not most, of our students will continue with remote learning for the second half of the school year. Second is ensuring that our educators have the support and resources that they need, and helping ensure we don't experience a loss of our excellent teachers from DPS because of the challenges this year has brought. We know that high teacher turnover is something that we are seeing and anticipating in districts across the state and the country, and want to be sure that we are thinking about how we are really supporting our educators in DPS and ensuring we retain our great teachers. Third is building broad and deep community engagement around our reopening plans and what school will look like as we return, to ensure that we have strong community confidence in our schools and that we don't suffer significant declines in enrollment. Similarly, we're seeing declines in enrollment in school districts across the state and across the country, and we need to be sure that we're continuing to engage our families in meaningful ways and maintain their confidence. And lastly, and maybe the most significant need that we need to be planning for is providing deep remediation and social emotional well-being support to our students to help them recover from the trauma and the lost learning that they've experienced during COVID. This work of remediation and that recovery for our students is going to come at a significant expense to our school district that we must be prepared to support. From the DPS Foundation's approach, we believe that identifying strategies to meet these huge challenges I've just named needs to begin with deep listening and conversation in our school communities. In the first months of 2021, the foundation, along with community partners and DPS, will lead community listening sessions and research that culminates in a paper that will have recommendations for DPS, local policymakers, and community partners. Our objectives for this paper are really three things. One, we want to take this moment to understand and document the experiences of our school communities through this crisis. Two is to lift up promising practices and innovative ways our school communities have found to navigate the challenges brought on by COVID. And three, identify ways that the disruptions caused by this crisis have spurred new ways of that we can use to continue to think about how to strengthen and support our public school experience for Durham students, and identifying ways that the innovative approaches that have been developed by our school communities as they've navigated this school year can be scaled as part of our reimagining of what our public school experience can look like. We know that as we begin looking toward what the return to school will look like, it will and should look different than before COVID. So we're looking forward to continuing engaging with you all as we embark on this work in the early part of 2021 to identify community-rooted approaches for supporting and strengthening the learning experience for our students. Thank you so much for all the ways you all are supporting this work, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And like I said, Dr. Hardy is here as well.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for the great report. Questions from the committee? Commissioner Alam.
Hey, thank you so much, Megan, for coming and speaking with us and the work you're doing with the HOPE program. I was wondering, at the HOPE Learning Centers, what resources are available for kids with learning disabilities?
So the Learning Center partners may be able to, well, they would definitely be able to speak to more detail on that question for you when they join on Monday. So I'll share that with them and they can share more. But my understanding of how they're supporting our students with learning differences is they work directly with the students' teachers and identify, what's in their IEPs and what supports they need and do their best to provide those. But I certainly think it's a challenge, and they would be happy to speak more to that.
Okay. Other questions, Commissioner Carter?
Yes, thank you for this excellent report. Such important work. My question is really high level, and it's thinking ahead, and Megan, you touched on this, and I'm really thrilled about the work you described, the deep listening in the community, and your three objectives there seem really critical for helping us with reopening. We will need to reopen our schools, and we have to figure out how to do that safely. What are the precautions that we must put in place so that we can serve, especially the most vulnerable children, but all of our children, again, in our public school setting. School closures magnify inequities, and I really am starting to feel like schools can only be closed as a last resort. And our community has done amazing things, miraculous really, with food insecurity, with small businesses, the support that we are providing there, and just the back on the ball, all that has happened through the Rescue, Renewal, and Recovery Task Force. We've got a lot of renewal and recovery there. Our school-age children, not higher ed. I'm really thinking K through 12 here, pre-K through 12 here. And is there, in addition to the foundation, which is its own sort of brain trust roundtable, is there a round table within the Recovery and Renewal Task Force that's, working with the school district, other school education leaders in the community, and epidemiologists to mastermind what it will take to open our schools and how we can do that, now, as soon as possible, safely, with teachers feeling confident that it's safe, based on things we're learning now. We know much more now about this pandemic and how it spreads. So anyway, I am just curious about that. If Megan, you may not know, it really may be more of a question for the mayor and Wendy or even Brenda at this point.
Yeah, there is an education roundtable. And so anyone, Commissioner Jacobs or Howerton or Mayor Schul or Ryan Smith, who's on, may be able to speak to how that education roundtable is working in the way that you're describing, Commissioner Carter.
So I'm just beginning this process, Commissioner Carter, so I haven't been in those conversations. So maybe the mayor or Commissioner Jacobs can respond to that at this point.
Madam Chair, thank you. I think that's a great question. I don't really think the Education Roundtable as we have it set up is quite the place to do that, because that has Durham Public Schools, but it mainly has the colleges. And I think what you're asking about, Commissioner Carter, is really an important question that needs its own examination. And so I think that we should do that through the task force. We should have a group that comes together that talks about what it would take to get our schools reopened safely, and to, of course, let our Durham Public Schools help lead that conversation, but to have the resources around them that they need to help do that. So while you were talking, I was texting Ryan Smith, our staff for the task force, and I got a response that he said, good idea. He was agreeing with you. So I think we can help make that happen. The wonders of technology.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Schulz. And I think that is a conversation that the DPS has to be at the table. The educators have to be at the table to have that conversation. Even Durham Tech need to be at the table when those conversations are being had.
Yeah, I just want to add, we could listen. Dr. Hardy is here from Durham Public Schools, so she may want to comment, because I think they are.
Thank you. I don't see her name, so if she wants to speak up, that'd be great on this topic. Oh, there you are. I didn't see you.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I am here, and I have enjoyed all of the conversation thus far. And as you know, we are working very closely with our board, as well as the ABC Collaborative, to really make sure we're making thoughtful decisions regarding the reopening of schools. We know it's critical in terms of how we support the 33,000 students. So we are definitely open and welcome collaboration, and welcome to the new commissioners. And again, it's my pleasure to be here on behalf of our superintendent, Dr. Mavinga.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions or that's burning right now? Or can we move on?
I'm not sure if you can see my hand. I've been holding it up.
Okay.
But I just wanted to note that I appreciate that conversation, the chance to hear those questions, because in addition to what my question was, I would add that the conversation needs to include the parents and the caregivers more than just the educators, because they have to make the decision to support sending their children back to school. And if that conversation is not occurring on a consistent basis to make sure that they feel comfortable, it's going to be harder. And then just acknowledging that the students, the youth themselves need to also be engaged in that conversation. And I would love to hear how that can all be encompassed in a roundtable, or whether it's with the ABC Collaborative or the task force, however it is. I think that that's important. And I also want to add that I understand that the listening sessions will be happening. It'll be important to make sure that it is acknowledged more than just the vulnerability, that the actual data shows that Black and Brown children are impacted far worse than others, and that specific indication is not made to kind of reach in and try to find solutions that will work for those children who are disparately impacted by just what is racism and the system that is education, and how it has not been addressed prior to COVID and continues to not be addressed. We're not going to get to a solution that works for children like my own. So I look forward to the conversation, and I hope that Durham Children's Initiative would be included in that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Freeman. You know, I was just thinking about the transportation conversation with the young people, and Commissioner Carter was on that Zoom as well, and they had some great ideas about transportation. So having our young people on a Zoom and having these conversations would be very informative for us to know what they think. So, so I think it would be a good idea to have our youth participating. I think Commissioner Jacobs, you had your hand up.
Two things. First of all, I want to make a suggestion. Your question about what can we do with the agenda, and I wanted to suggest that the last item, which is Ryan Smith presenting from the Recovery and Renewal Task Force, that instead that I would just like to extend an invitation instead to all of our city council members and county commissioners to instead attend our Recovery and Renewal Task Force meeting on Friday, and we could pull that and have that have everybody come to that meeting on Friday, because there's also going to be a discussion about the vaccine rollout in more detail as well. So that's an option if you're looking at a way that we could shorten the agenda. I just wanted to throw that out.
Well, I appreciate that, because I hate rushing people through these conversations, because they're very meaty and they're very important. And with having so many on here and trying to manage the time, the only way we can do it is to move some of the items to another agenda.
And I did the second thing. I wanted to thank Megan and all of the partners. Incredible work. Again, these are the positive things that are coming out of this crisis. Providing digital equity, the money you've raised, the support for our students. I mean, and just these Hope Learning Centers are so important. I mean, even though they're only serving about 300 students, these are some of the most vulnerable students. And what I'm hearing is, again, from your presentation and everything we know, is that this is a critical need that is going to continue. And I just say to the city and the county, this has been on us to fund, and we're going to have to look at how are we going to continue serving and supporting this program in the months ahead, because the need is not going away, as we just heard from Megan. So this is, the money runs out, and we're all going to need to think about how we keep supporting these most vulnerable students.
So thank you so much, Megan, for your presentation, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. You'll be at our meeting for another presentation. And Dr. Harding, thank you for being here as well. So we'll move on to the next conversation. The next presentation, assistance provided to our homeless residents. We can start with that presentation.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to interject. I know the suggestion that Commissioner Jacobs made was a great idea. I just want to make sure that it's noted. The ability to participate in that meeting may be limited, and just making sure that that's noted as well.
I was going to say the same thing, Madam Chair, because many of us are in orientation this week, and it would be impossible to actually be in attendance at that meeting. However, I'm just one person, and I can make sure to do my questions for follow-up for any of the rest of the presentation. So I have no further questions for the rest of the meeting if individuals are willing to push through.
So if that particular item would last, what, 20 minutes?
Chair Howerton, it is actually on the agenda for a 5-minute discussion and 10-minute questions from the committee. I do want to also state that that meeting will be recorded live on YouTube on the city's page. So I just wanted to note that as well.
So it'll be available to persons that are not there. They can still watch it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, does that work for everyone? Mayor Schul? You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
That definitely works for me, but I also want to point out that a lot of this information is things that those of us who've been on the council or the commission are aware of, have been following the task force. But Ryan did say he'd be happy to reach out and have individual discussions with the new county commissioners, which I think would help.
I think that would be great, because and also it gives them an opportunity to read the material and really drill down and ask more questions than to be rushed through it today. So does that work well for you, Commissioner Burns and Commissioner Lum?
I'm a team player, and I'm on board.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks, Mayor Schul. Okay, so if we can have the next presentation. So on the homeless residents, that's Davis. Okay, there you go.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, Mayor Schul, and county commissioners and council members. If you go to the next slide. Thank you. Wanted to give you a brief update as to what's happening in the homeless system and for those who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Durham. So as of last week, we update these numbers on every Monday afternoon. We take a look at see where we're trending. So as of last week, we were at 116 single adults who were experiencing unsheltered homelessness that were waiting for shelter. That was down from 129 when I last presented to the same group in August. Yesterday, these numbers came up, and this 116 is down to 114 single adults. So not a big movement, but a little bit of a movement. So that's a good thing. We are still having 16 families experiencing unsheltered homelessness, waiting for shelter beds. However, there are a total of 25 families who have been identified as unsheltered and homeless, but only 16 of those 25 are actively interested in a shelter bed. Next slide. This is our current capacity. We are currently at 32 beds for single men and 15 beds for single women at Urban Ministries at Liberty Street. The 9 rooms for families have not been changed at all because they are separated. They're not a congregate space. We have expanded rooms at Carolina Duke Inn. We have gone from 40 rooms to 64 rooms. This includes 24 rooms in Building B at Carolina Duke, which is being currently staffed by a partnership of Urban Ministries, Project Access, and Reinvestment Partners. And since we last spoke in August, Families Moving Forward is back to their full capacity. They had reduced capacity to 17 bedrooms and are now back to 21 rooms. So that's a good news. We have heard that many families have been declining shelter space for a variety of reasons. We still currently are using 2 duplexes to handle anybody who has tested positive for COVID in the homeless system as a place to recover. So far, those 14 bed spaces have allowed us capacity to meet the needs. However, in October, there was a spike in COVID positives, and that required us to bring on an additional 12 rooms under exigent circumstances to provide additional space overflow. Next slide. So money, that's what everybody likes to know about. So at this point, we still have city ESG COVID entitlement funds that are in place, 602,000. It's split between rapid rehousing and emergency support. This city community development block grant has moved a little over $1 million to the Department of Social Services for eviction diversion. And these funds are being used with DSS to help people who are facing evictions. The state ESG COVID funds, this is round one, has been split between rapid rehousing and emergency shelter operations. And these funds are currently in use to fund operations at urban ministries, both at Liberty Street and the expanded capacity at Carolina Duke Inn. Next slide. We do have a second round of funding, a little over $2 million of city ESG COVID funds that need to be determined how we're spending those. And we've been having regular conversations with the community of homeless service providers, as well as seeking input from county and city departments to hear kind of where needs are, so that we can best layer these funds and not duplicate what FEMA's covering, what CARES Act is funding, because we can't have a duplication of benefits. At this point, we are looking at spending some of these ESG COVID funds on a white flag program that will hopefully be able to be up and running January 1st. And we do have a little bit of a white flag program happening now in December. We just received Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon, that the state's second round of ESG COVID funds has been released at $783,633 for competition. And the community development homeless services team will be acting as the lead agency to coordinate a community-wide application for those funds. And the application for those state funds is due back to the state January 22nd. The expectation is those funds would be available shortly thereafter. Now, I believe that's it. Next slide. And questions, discussion.
Thank you for that report. Just what is white flag funds?
White flag funds. White flag is our hypothermia program, and what we are using is we're currently using some CARES money that Urban Ministries was able to get, about $60,000 that has to be spent by the end of December. So those funds are being used to purchase on a night-by-night basis hotel rooms when the temperature is below 32 degrees or 37 degrees if there's anticipated precipitation during those nights. Those funds are being used in partnership with Housing for New Hope's street outreach team, which is being funded by a joint county-city funds through the Unsheltered Coordinating Agency contract. So the street outreach workers are working with people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness and placing people into the hotel rooms on those nights that White Flag is being activated, and Urban Ministries is using their state funds to pay the bill for the hotel room. So it's a really nice partnership that we've figured out how to get working, and that'll cover us for the month of December.
One other question, and we'll have somebody else ask questions. What's the approximate number of persons you have participating right now?
Participating in
the White Flag Fund.
In the White Flag, we had the last night, we were at 20 and we're expected to be able to go up to 30. The first night they had it, they were hoping to have 19 or 20 people show up. And I think 4 people came the first night. And then the next night they had 19. So words, people are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, and it's a totally new system. COVID has forced us to totally redesign our white flag program.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's just a new adjustment.
Thank you. Other questions from other members? Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Colin, for all your work and for your presentation. Could you give us some of the examples of why families are declining shelter? I'm just wondering if we might be able to provide alternate options that would better meet their needs or make people more likely to accept shelter. It's worrying that there are so many families unsheltered with, winter and COVID.
I agree with you. What I'm hearing is some people are feeling like the rooms that are available are too small. There's adequate beds, but the space in the shelter is too small for what they would like. I've also heard that there's some concern about there's still some shared space in the shelter and some fear about that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just like to think more about ways that we might be able to get, more duplexes or, I don't know, more housing that might be more attractive to families.
We were able to partner with the community. We had a work group specifically tasked to look at unsheltered homeless families. And this group did some community outreach and raised some money for hotel rooms that went to Durham Public Schools and to Volunteers of America through the coordinated entry process, which allowed some families to be moved to hotel rooms for periods of time. So we have been looking at this and trying to find some affordable solutions to keep families off the streets.
Yeah, it's a rough time. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, are we still using the hotels that we were using at one time?
We are currently using one hotel, which has been funded with FEMA dollars for people who are deemed medically vulnerable, because that's the allowable expense for the hotel rooms at this point.
Okay, all right, other questions? Mayor Schul.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Davis, we've talked a lot, and I know you and Mr. Cummings and others have worked on this about the possibility of purchasing a hotel. We've been disappointed by the state's ability to help us with that. But instead of renting these rooms at a high price, that we could use this opportunity to purchase a hotel that would have long-term benefits for the city. When I saw that you said that you were thinking about long-term benefits for this ESG money, this new tranche of ESG money, is there a potential for that to be part of a hotel purchase?
That's a great question, Mayor. The ESG funds could potentially be used for a hotel purchase or renovation. However, it comes with some pretty significant strings, in that the dollar amount the hotel would end up needing to be used as an emergency shelter, specifically as an emergency shelter, for 3 to 10 years. And when I've talked with one of the group, the one party who is interested in sort of trying to procure a hotel about the use of these funds, that created some, pro forma budget issues going forward, because you've got the capital to buy it, but then there's no ongoing operation expenses to cover all those pieces for 3 to 10 years. And that's a big egg to crack, because emergency shelters are not cheap to run.
Any possibility of replacing some of our local dollars with some of the ESG money and moving some of our local dollars into that expenditure?
We have been looking at sort of layering and sort of trying to find what's the best funding source to meet the need in the most efficient manner. So I think we've been doing our best to try and figure out where do our dedicated housing funds, for instance, make more sense, and where do the ESG, because each one has very specific things you can and can't do. And sometimes what we're trying to do is put as much as we can in the ESG baskets, because these are unprecedented amounts of money.
Yeah.
And if we don't get these ESG funds spent on certain timelines, HUD will pull it back and give it to other jurisdictions.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, there are no other questions. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Davis, for your report. We will move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item will be housing and emergency assistance. I think we're gonna make this happen. Okay, is that Ben?
No pressure. No pressure.
No
Good morning,
pressure, no
everybody.
pressure, not at all, not at all.
I will try to be very, very efficient for you.
Great,
Good morning.
great to see you, Ben.
You too, and good morning to everyone, and welcome to our new commissioners as well too. Look forward to working with you. I'll be very, very brief. We have been really busy in social services, to say the least, and a lot of you are familiar with a lot of the services we've been doing. The housing and energy programs that we've been focused on have been very successful for us. We have been able to administer new programs and learned a lot through these programs. We've learned, it's really put a spotlight, I believe, on the housing crisis that we do have in Durham. However, we've been very fortunate as well too to be able to leverage additional funds for these programs. The biggest program that we have right now is the HOPE program, which you're probably somewhat familiar with. And we, about a week and a half ago, learned that we received an additional $3.6 million for this program, which was excellent. We have about $6.5 million roughly in service dollars available for this program. Now, to be very clear, the additional dollars do not open up additional applications. That's really to help fund the applications that we took. And unfortunately, we took the most in the state at over 2,300 applications. So that right there highlights the need that we have. But that coupled with the program that was referred to earlier, that is with our partnership with the city, which has been an excellent partnership, the Community Development Block Grant COVID funds. We have a little over $1 million there. We've spent about almost probably 70% of those funds to date. And those are the funds we definitely have to expend by the end of the year. We've got over $7 million to help people stay housed, which is very critical during these times. So we're having a lot of success with these programs. We're getting these funds out. The HOPE dollars we're working those applications now. We kind of work them as they've come in. And if you might recall, those funds, when we process an application, those funds are unlimited. We've been writing checks for as much as $9,000 and $10,000 in those programs. But once we spend the money, then that's where we have to cut it off at. So seeing that horizon and knowing that we're not going to be getting out of this anytime too soon, although there's a lot of positive news coming. We actually have a partnership meeting today with some stakeholders to talk about some future strategic plans and what we can do perhaps to leverage additional federal and state dollars, as well as look at some public-private partnerships. So we're going to be talking today, this afternoon, with partners from the city of Durham especially, and trying to start to lay some of those foundations there to look at the future, because this need will not go away anytime soon. But we are really responding now, and our workers are working these applications on a daily basis, trying to get these funds out. When I'm in the office, I'm signing these applications left and right, and it does bring a smile on my face because I know we're getting help to residents that are really in need. And we're going to keep working these programs until that funding is gone. And then hopefully we can see more funding coming maybe in the future, since the pandemic is definitely still impacting our residents for sure. We, and the energy side of things, we were able to, in the spring, there was a pandemic energy assistance that was issued. And what the state has done is we have two major programs that cover energy within the DSS world. They're called the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, or LEAP as it's commonly called. And we have the Crisis Intervention Program. The LEAP is the benefit that was issued back in the spring. They called it Pandemic LEAP, and it was an automatic payment that went out. There was no applications that were taken. This was in the really when we were starting to get into the social distancing. And what the state has done now is they have automatically reissued these payments for the new LEAP funds, which is a good thing because this is really helping those that are 60 and over and disabled adults. If they're getting food and nutrition benefits and they're getting services from the state, they received a letter in November saying they will automatically get this benefit. No need to apply, no need to do a thing. And we were thrilled with that. Those benefits are actually going out now. Now, if you did not receive a letter, because there was these criteria attached to it, they do need to make an application. However, we're doing applications. You don't have to do it in person. We can do it over the phone. We can do it. You can come to our office and do an application right there and drop it in a box safely, socially distanced. So we are now working the LEAP program effective December 1st for 60 and older and disabled adults. And January 1st, this program will open for the general population. But for right now in December, it is just for seniors and disabled adults. So that is a benefit that's anywhere from $300 to $500, depending on the heat source, that will be paid directly to the vendor. That is a very important benefit. Low Income Energy Assistance Program is an annual program that we do, but now it's probably needed more now than ever in the situation that we're in. The other program, the Crisis Intervention Program, is there's no special regulations or rules with this program. They have loosened the strings a little bit to help people qualify. However, that's our regular allocation, and we're taking those applications on a regular basis, especially as it gets cold. These programs tend to be kind of based on temperature and driven by temperature, extreme heat, extreme cold. So as we start to get cold now, we definitely see an increase in those applications as well. So that's kind of been our focus on the energy side. So between that and the housing, that has kept us pretty busy. Pandemic EBT was referenced earlier in the meeting, and that is I'm glad to say that program has been extended until the end of the school year in 2021. That has really become a program of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. DSS is not really involved in that program. However, we obviously support it and have advocated strongly for it. We were able to get out in October about $4.3 million in benefits to over 22,000 students in PEBT. So it definitely makes a difference. The other program that was referenced, and Commissioner Jacobs noted this as well too, is the maximum allotment under the Food and Nutrition Program, how that is going month by month. And we did get approval for December, so we're excited about that. And my hope is that we will continue to see that program receive, even though they're going month by month, I do believe we will continue to see those waivers issued into 2021. That provides an additional $2 million a month to our food and nutrition clients. So that is really helping their buying power, and that really helps seniors and disabled, because a lot of times they receive benefits that minimizes their food and nutrition benefit. You have seniors that may get $10 or $15 a month on an EBT card, but this gives them the maximum allotment now at maybe $100 or $150. So it does make a big difference. So we hope that will continue, but again, that's a federal waiver. It's out of our control. We just simply advocate and support it and hope to see it continue. So the other thing I wanted just to mention really quickly is that one of the big impacts we're starting to see now, I think, with the rise in cases is within our child welfare system. We're seeing a lot more positive COVID cases in our child welfare system, especially within foster kids. And it's creating definitely unique challenges for us. I want to publicly thank our foster parents. They have been true heroes during this pandemic. And if you can imagine taking a child into custody that is COVID positive and calling foster parents to say, will you take a COVID positive child? Yeah, it's not like, oh, yes, yes, it's very difficult. We actually had a case not long ago where we had workers spending the night in the agency until we could secure family members. So we have family, we have foster parents that are really stepping up to the plate, but we are starting to see an uptick in COVID positive cases in our child welfare system with families that we're working with. And that has unfortunately trickled over to our staff as well too a little bit. But my staff are true heroes, and they've been working hard and really trying to get the benefits and services out there and keep things afloat. So we thank you all so much for your support. You guys have been tremendous during these past few months, which has been like nothing we've ever seen in social services. But we will continue to fight the fight and look forward to working with our stakeholders to try to secure more resources and services as we get into 2021 till we can get onto the other side of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank your staff and your team, because you're right there where the heart of the work is really taking care of people, and we just want to thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
I want to ask Commissioner Burns. I know that you've been working. I know you've been working around housing and eviction programs from the governor's office. Is it anything that you'd like to add to that conversation?
I actually had a quick question for Ben, and it was going to be a follow-up just to highlight. Ben, you, Mr. Rose, you said 2,300 applications. Is that what you said in the beginning? Could you finish that sentence? You said it one time?
2,300 applications for the HOPE program.
I wanted the sentence you said before that is that our county has the most. I just want to clarify. I'm taking off my county. Well, I can't take my county commissioner hat. I'm just going to let me put on my dual hat. Durham currently doesn't. No, I'm not taking it off. I got it yesterday. That'll probably make the news. So one of the things that I want to say is we are not actually the highest, and I want to give some context. Huh?
We're okay. I know we were the highest at one point, but I didn't know.
We are. I do know what those numbers are, and I'm trying to figure out. And I've already texted my boss and said, "Hey, and I because each night, every night at 5, because we meet at 6 and 7, I get the numbers every night for county. So we are not at the top.
Okay.
And I also want to point out, to put some context around that, because we have entitlement communities and entitlement counties in North Carolina, 4 counties, 24 communities, and Durham is an entitlement community. So there was that immediate injection of funding. The difference is, and this is not a knock, Wake County is an entitlement county, and the city is an entitlement city, just like Mecklenburg is an entitlement county and a city. So they got these 2 big tranches that we didn't get as a city and a county. So they were able early on to build their own program. So Wake County has House Wake, and Mecklenburg actually has Ramp Charlotte. And I say all that to say that the Durham applications are running directly to HOPE. Right? Whereas like the applications for many other counties, there are right now probably 10 cities that are running programs at the same time the state is. So you have people in certain counties and in certain cities that can apply for multiple programs. So that's another reason why you see Durham's a little bit high. Again, not the highest, is because as a city and a county, we don't have another program. So Charlotte's program runs for 3 months. I'm not going to get into Wake counties because I don't want to prolong the meeting, but just know that there are citizens in other counties that can apply for multiple programs. Lenore is running a program right now. Greensboro, when you look at Guilford County, Greensboro, High Point, they're all running programs, and so is Forsyth. So then you get Winston-Salem is now running a program. So their citizens have 2 options, whereas ours only has 1. So I do want to throw that out, and that is one of the reasons. But Charlotte is still pretty high. Wake is still pretty high, but just know other citizens have options that our residents, not citizens, our residents don't currently have. And that was what I was going to throw out.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilwoman Freeman, and then Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Burns, for that information. I feel like I'm going to have to make a phone call after this, but yeah. I just wanted to just ask the question, Mr. Rose, in the 2,300 applications, I just want to make sure we're collecting demographic information, because on the backside of this, I recognize we're in crisis and things should flow, but I just want to make sure we can track the data back in the end of this, or as we turn over the leaf on, turn the page on this, to make sure we can see that the disparities we normally see didn't occur in this situation. And then also just a question around language access, acknowledging that I've had a couple of folks who are Spanish only speaking mention that they had some trouble getting follow-up, and I wanted to make sure that that was brought to your attention.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And yes, the data collection is there. While the HOPE program ran through the 211 system, we're operating in a system there that we should be able to pull and extrapolate plenty of data. And I'll definitely look into we have obviously the limited English proficiency plan, so we have access to translation services. So I'm not sure what happened there. If you can send me something specific, I can definitely look into it, but I'll follow up in general too. So
I'll
thank you for
definitely
sharing
follow
that.
up with you. And then
Okay.
if you have information on time and location for your stakeholder meeting, I would love to be included this afternoon.
Sure.
Thank you.
This afternoon at 1 o'clock. I'll try to send you something right after I get off of here.
I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Commissioner Jacobs.
I just wanted to thank you, Ben, because and all of your staff, because the burden of everything has really fallen on DSS, and even related to the COVID positive children. We had an incident where one night we had a whole family, a whole group of children, where they had to stay in the DSS building with our child welfare staff overnight. I mean, that is the kind of heroism that we are seeing from our DSS staff on that level. Also just, and just maybe you could speak a little bit, Ben, about our eviction diversion program that we have with the city and the county that does, of course, we're running out of money for that, but there are a few other options for emergency services and rental assistance. I don't think you mentioned that. And I also appreciate this partnership meeting, because what you did is you responded to, I think at our last meeting, I said that I was really sounding the alarm, because people can't be safe. They can't be healthy if they don't have a place to live. Like, it's the most fundamental part of our response to COVID. Health and safety starts with having a home. So, and just this whole crisis that we're facing. So, and you followed up by the fact that you're organizing this meeting is amazing to me, because you have taken the step of pulling people together to say, okay, saying we're going to run out of money is not an option. Like, we have to figure out a Durham solution to this. So I'm so grateful to you. But if you could just talk a little bit about some of the other kind of infrastructure that we do have around rental assistance and emergency assistance.
Sure, definitely. We have multiple county programs that are primarily county funded. They're not really involving any federal or state dollars that provide emergency assistance. We have the Opening Doors program, which is rental assistance. And again, in normal times, that is helping families that may struggle by they lose a job or they lose some income due to a furlough or a layoff or something, and we can help them bridge a gap. It's very limited, unlike the HOPE and the CV program that has, the CV program has up to $6,000 benefit, and the HOPE program, like I said, was unlimited. These programs are typically more $300, $400, $500, $600 in assistance. The eviction diversion program is really very unique, and we're one of the few counties, I think, that really has such a great relationship with legal aid in the state to provide that service. And this has been something that's been happening now for about 3 years, and we've we got funding with it. I believe in fiscal year 2019, we actually got some funding tied to it so that we could work with legal aid to provide the legal assistance when someone is, at that point, they were facing eviction. They had gotten the notice and they provide the legal assistance, and then we would provide the financial assistance. Again, we're not really much of a cap, but not quite to the extent of the benefits that we're seeing like in the HOPE program. But there really are very unique and innovative programs. The challenge is they are county programs. They're limited. So what we've been doing over this year is pulling from every resource that we can. So when we get an application in, if we can pull a little bit from Opening Doors and a little bit from the Community Development Block Grant CV funds, we put it all together to get the person where they need to be. And we have definitely gone through our eviction diversion funds. The good thing is in the CV program, eviction diversion is a part of that program as well too. And legal aid has been working with those families as well too. So it is a great partnership. DSS and legal aid to have a partnership is really unique. Usually we consider they're on the opposite side of the field for us because they're always looking to litigate against us, but this has been a great relationship. We work very well with Peter, and I know they are at max capacity too. They are definitely doing all they can do to serve people that are potentially facing eviction. But they are wonderful programs, and I think, Wendy, if I'm not mistaken, we have maybe about $1 million, a little over $1 million in county funding for these emergency assistance and eviction diversion programs, which is truly amazing.
So thank you so much, Ben, and thank all of you. We are 5 minutes over our time limit, everyone. So are there any more burning questions that need to get answered? I'm just trying to make sure that we stay on our timeline if it's not anything that's burning. Is there another question? Yes, Freeman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a comment to say this is probably the first time in this joint city county meeting that it's so close. I appreciate your diligence in keep it to the agenda without cutting folks off. And I look forward to the next one in February. We may not need to do it every month, as I have been screaming and shouting because we always rush through it all. But I appreciate your ability to navigate. Thank you.
You're welcome. It will be my intention to respect everyone's time. Everybody has such a tight schedule every day that if I can contribute to managing the time, that we cover what we need to cover, but we also respect the time that you have, I will do my best to do that. And I can only do that with your help. It's not up to me. It's really up to all of us to pay attention to that. I do want one thing that I'd like to say is just kind of put it out there. It was an HB2 that is on everybody's mind right now. I've been in contact with Kevin Leonard over the association to see what's the conversation from that end. And he said that he would get back with me. He's checking to see what's going on there. And I know there's a conversation this afternoon. So I know the city has been in that conversation. So just so that we as a county city are really staying in that conversation so we decide what we want to do. And I wanted to make sure that we're in line with what the association is working on too, but I'll stay in touch with the mayor around that. We have, our next meeting is scheduled for February 9th at 9 o'clock. And that will be facilitated by Mayor Schultz. If there is, all minds are clear, and as the pastor says, all minds are clear, we can motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
And do we have to do a voice vote, or we can just all be all in favor?
I think you can just adjourn it, Madam Chair.
I can just, well, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one, y'all.
You too.